guys, welcome back to Eggs the Podcast. But before we get started, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Taylor Style. So here's what I've noticed this time of year. We're kind of back in it. Q1 is over, things are picking up, calendars are filling up again, meetings, travel, events, all of it. And whether we like it or not, people are starting to see us more. Our first impressions are beginning to matter again. And the problem is, most of us haven't really thought about what we're wearing since like November. That's honestly been one of the biggest perks for me for using Taylor Style. Taylor is a clothing rental and styling service. They use real human stylists, powered by AI, to send you outfits that actually make sense for your life. So not just random clothes, but things that you can wear to a meeting, out to dinner, on the road, and still feel like you. So instead of standing in your closet and thinking, do I still wear this? You've just got options. Stuff that fits, stuff that works together, and stuff that makes you look like you've got it all figured out, even if you don't. And the best part is, you don't have to shop, you don't have to think about it, and you definitely don't have to do laundry. I'm a subscriber right now, and every few weeks I get a box with hand-picked outfits chosen by a real stylist, refined by their AI, and the crazy part is they actually nail it most of the time. Stuff I would never go buy, but I end up wearing nonstop just because it works. If things are picking up for you right now, work, life, whatever it is, this is one of those small upgrades that actually makes a difference. Go to taylor.style, that's Taylor.style, and use the code EGGS to take 25% off your first month. It's a simple way to look sharp, save time, and show up like you mean it. That's Taylor, Taylor.style. Use promo code EGGS and take 25% off your first month. Honestly, it just takes one more thing off your plate and gives you time to get back to whatever's important. And now, back to the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Eggs, the Podcast. Today's special guest is Justin Montgomery. Justin, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Thrilled to death to have you here. And I think you've got a really good topic. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's start, I guess, kind of at the beginning. Let's talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how we got to where we are today.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Justin. I kind of a serial entrepreneur. I'm sure like a lot of your guests are. Kind of just grew up poor and decided I wanted something different, like a lot of other entrepreneurs do. Just kind of had that spark, that motivation to do something and break out of that cycle. So went to school, got a master's degree, ended up becoming a nurse practitioner. For some people who might not know what a nurse practitioner is, it's kind of in between a registered nurse and a doctor, basically. Like I can diagnose, I can prescribe medication, I can order tests, I can essentially function like a doctor in a lot of states. And so became a nurse practitioner, did okay doing that, making $150,000 a year kind of a thing. But I realized that it was still a job, it's still just a job. Still kind of just stuck in that time for money trap. And about 5 years into my career, I just realized that I needed to do something else if I wanted to truly build some wealth. I could pick up extra shifts in the emergency department and keep doing stuff like that and make an extra $1,000 here or there, but still, that's not building wealth, And so I decided to start my own practice, my own medical practice. Started a couple clinics, mostly men's health clinics, where we did testosterone replacement therapy and that sort of stuff. And started a few men's health clinics, grew those, scaled those, started a telemedicine practice that I ended up selling kind of during COVID when, everyone was kind of moving to more of the digital space sort of a thing. So I started a telemedicine practice, a hormone replacement therapy telemedicine practice, grew that, scaled that, sold it, and ended up selling my men's health clinics as well. And during this time period as well, I started a business, which is what would basically build my 8-figure net worth. I was doing okay with the medical practices, but it still wasn't like real significant wealth. I was building wealth, but not significant 7-8-figure wealth. And so I started a business called the Elite Nurse Practitioner, which is an online continuing education course business. And through that business, I taught medical providers, so nurse practitioners, doctors, physician's assistants, chiropractors, et cetera. I would teach them how to start their own medical practice. So I basically took what I knew, what I was doing, and I just turned that into an education business, teaching people how to do it. Because I was doing it over a few years, and so I started that in basically 2020, and my first course sold like $50,000 in 7 days, and I was just like, "Holy shit! Like this is real money! Like that's real money!" You know what I mean? And so I just doubled down on that, and 2-3 years later, business was valuated at 8 figures and essentially allowed me to retire before the age of 40.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about just deciding to make the decision to monetize your expertise, right? And like, when was the right time for you? Because there's a lot of people that, I mean, obviously, if you're a solopreneur or even an established entrepreneur, you've done a lot of things. And I guess even if you're not an entrepreneur, maybe you've done a lot of things that might be really good or useful for people. You obviously took, what was specifically your wheelhouse, and this was the thing we've been doing, and translated that into coursework that people could then buy. But let's talk a little bit about just sort of, I mean, that first inkling where you went, you know what, maybe this should be a course. Like, how did you even, I guess maybe it's a confidence thing or a self-esteem thing, but when were you comfortable enough with your knowledge to be able to go forward with it as a course?
Well, I started the business originally. It wasn't even really a business. I started it as a blog. And so I would just write articles about, the state of healthcare and things like that. And I started getting a following from it. And people started then just asking me, hey, how did you start your men's health clinic? How did you start this medical cannabis clinic? How did you start this telemedicine practice? And so I started doing some consultations, private consultations, just through my blog. People would read my blog, and then they would just email me, hey, do you do consultations? Sure, $500 an hour or whatever. And so I started doing those, and I started getting like more and more of those booked. And I started realizing like, I'm still exchanging my time for dollars. This wasn't the goal. I'm just doing consultations. And so basically just people asked me. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to turn this into an actual like evergreen product. I'm going to turn this into a pre-recorded course where I'm teaching people the same thing during the consultations, but let me just record it and let me just sell it. So it's passive in nature. So I just, honestly, I didn't really have a plan. I started it as a blog, and people just started asking me for consultations. And then I just had an idea of like, well, let's just create a course over this instead and sell it. So, it wasn't really more of a comfort thing. It was just, that's what people were asking for. And so I just kind of created it and, delivered the demand.
Well, it's really interesting. And there's a couple things there that maybe we could dive into a little bit. I mean, one is sort of the notion of niching, right? I mean, obviously this is a pretty tight niche that you're in, where you're speaking to either, elite nurse practitioner folks that you want to talk to, or people that want to go into starting their own medical clinics of one variety or another. It seems pretty narrow anyway. I mean, I imagine there's a lot of diversity in those groups, but still, it's relatively niche. And so, I mean, maybe there's something to talk about there, which is just, identifying your niche. In your case, it seems like kind of fell into it. Like this is the way that just your career path took you. But if you were, I don't know, trying to create something new today, or you were trying to identify a market, I don't know that you would have just Googled and come up with, oh, well, okay, nurse practitioners, that's the thing. So, I mean, in your case, obviously the experience is what drove the decision. But if you were trying to advise somebody, or if somebody was calling you for that consultative approach and you were trying to help somebody create a course or not, is there a metric or a boundary or something that you help establish that this is worth it and this isn't?
Yeah, I think the way I mentor people now, because I help people start these kind of course businesses now. And the way I do it during those mentorship calls and stuff is that, everyone is an expert in something. I mean, sure, someone who works down at Starbucks really isn't. But, if you are somewhat, an entrepreneurial spirited person and you have some kind of skill base, knowledge base, and whatever it may be, coding or some sort of customer service thing or accounting or whatever, I mean, you should know kind of who your niche is. I mean, in a way, you should know who you could target through the information, knowledge, and skills that you have. And sometimes it just takes a lot of prying to figure out who that niche could possibly be. And so now I feel like if you just use some artificial intelligence tools, I mean, you could use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever, you should be able to allow it to do some market analysis for you and some market research to identify maybe what who could benefit mostly from your skill set and the knowledge and information that you have, because there's definitely someone out there who is willing to pay for what you know, as long as you are somewhat specialized or knowledgeable in something, right? I mean, if you're not knowledgeable or, about anything whatsoever, then you need to fix that and you need to learn some skills, right? So yeah, anyways, the second part of your question was what? I don't know if you remembered.
Well, no. And I think what you're getting to is kind of the crux of the thing, right? I mean, the notion is, is there a reason to, or like, is your course idea not going to be effective where somebody else's course might be, right? And you might be able to derive some of that even using an AI tool or doing some basic market research. And, and I kind of agree with you too, or at least I think that this is kind of what you were saying, which is basically there's a market for almost anything. So depending on what you want to do, there's somebody there. And if that happens to be your wheelhouse, in your case, it was nurse practitioners, but I don't know if you're an auto mechanic or you're whatever, you're going to find your people. Right. And there's this sort of marketing idea. I always screw this up, but I think it's Steven Pinker that talked about the 1,000 true fans. Or no, it's not. It's somebody else, something Kelly, I think. But anyway, this notion that really all you need is 1,000 true fans to find success, right? Or to make enough money to do what you want to do.
100%. That's all you need. Like, that's what I tell people all the time is that you do not need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers. You don't. Need a few hundred to 1,000. Like, I scaled this continuing education course business over here to literally, I mean, there were some months we made $700,000 or $800,000 in 1 month, and I had 7,000 customers total. Yeah. I mean, it was an 8-figure business. Like,
well, it's great, right? Because the economy or economics on these things are great. I mean, if you have even just, let's say, $100 course for easy math, and then you have 500 customers, I mean, you're making real money. Like, yeah. I mean, that's, and you don't need it to be, like to your point, you don't need it to be 1 million customers or whatever, So a lot of people have these like moonshot notions that it's like, man, how do I get, broad market adoption? And I get everybody in the, country or whatever on my thing. But that's not what it's really about. It's about finding, in this case, it was Kevin Kelly's 1,000 true fans. And, with that notion anyway, if you had that 1,000 people and each of them are dropping $99 a month into your program, like, you're making serious cash and, a real viable business there. So I think that, to maybe just close the loop on the point about niching, and like you put it, if you've got expertise in almost anything, there's room to make a course.
Yep, 100% agree. Yeah. And the thing is too, like you said, the economics of these sorts of things, this kind of business is really, really good, especially if you're providing something truly valuable. And, people always throw this term value out there. And I don't think a lot of people don't understand what a value proposition is. It's the value you're proposing to the world, right? What solution are you solving? And, what solution to what problem, right? You need to identify the problem first within a specific group of people, and then do your knowledge and skills translate into a solution? And if the solution is something if it's solving a real problem amongst a certain group of people, right? A real problem, not no bullshit problem, a real problem. You can sell that course for $500 to $1,000. Most of the courses that I sold fell between the $500 and $1,000 range. And so you do the math there. You have 1,000 customers and you sell your course for $8,000. That is $1 million. And so that's the thing. You don't need to have lots and lots of customers. You only need to have a handful, really. I have a client right now that I'm mentoring, and she's developing a course that targets lawyers. And it's what she's teaching is extremely niched. And she's selling this course for $3,500. You do the math there. You don't need to sell a whole lot of them to make some good money. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and maybe so, and I'd like to get into maybe some pricing strategy here a little bit later. But one of the things that you kind of mentioned here was, understanding what value you're actually bringing to the market. And I think that this goes a little bit back to what we were just talking about in terms of identifying your niche or deciding what it is you're going to pursue in your course. But I think that there's kind of this misnomer, right? Or this idea that just because I said it, it's valuable. And so the idea of understanding, the real value of what you're saying, I wonder if we could talk a little bit more about really identifying that. And I just want to point out, because you mentioned this kind of earlier, but if you have a set of skills, or let's say you work in a place or you've developed a career or something, you've developed skills and you've no doubt run into roadblocks or things that are annoying, or, the pain points of doing that job. Right. And that's where I think these real opportunities start to emerge. So it's funny that not only did you say, in terms of being able to create a course, you can rely on the information or the knowledge that you've built in a career or something, you're passionate about. But I think also in terms of identifying what to be talking about in your course, you can uncover those things by just solving your own problems. And so I wonder if that, is good direction, or if that's sort of something that you would encourage out of your students or mentors or mentees, whatever we call them.
I mean, I think that's a pretty solid direction, really. I think that a lot of people don't, you basically worded it perfectly. Like, just because you say it's valuable doesn't really mean it is. A lot of people think that just because they, whatever comes out of their mouth is going to be valuable, they think it's going to sell. And I've seen a lot of people who will start one of these kinds of, this sort of business, and it just falls on deaf ears because they're not really solving a real problem. And so I think step number one in this entire process is, to summarize it up, is you need to determine if the problem that you're solving is actually a real problem. And by that, I mean, my wheelhouse is professional education. We're not talking about developing a course on how to like trade options or how to like quilt or how to tie flies or something like that. We're creating a course here that is targeting a professional demographic who has money and who have problems. And so if the problem you're solving within, more of this professional based education business, if the problem that you're solving helps someone make more money, if it helps them get a career advancement, if it helps them get a new job, those sorts of things are valuable. And or help them start a business, is another example. These things are extremely valuable. And so you can charge more money for them, and there will be some demand for it because these are real problems people are facing. And so just be thinking about that. I think it's critically important. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, having some stakes in it, versus sort of course for course sake, right? I mean, to your point, people could be teaching really anything. And it doesn't mean that there isn't, an audience for the fly tires, and there isn't an audience for some of these other groups. It just means that maybe the marketing model is a little bit different. And so we could get into that. I think next would be a great topic to start getting into, which is how do we even tell people about this? So we put together our course, in something that's a little bit niche, and maybe this is a good evidence for, or a good argument for being more niche. It seems like you might have I don't want to call it easy, but maybe an easier opportunity because you already know who you're talking to, right? You're talking, just to use your example of nurse practitioners again, this is a professional services group. These guys have to do continuing education and other things like that all the time. They're looking for courses, oh man, I don't want to take the same dumb course we took last year. Let's find something new, whatever it is. Like, so there's people actively looking for this, and you've got a product that may be niched specifically for them. So you have an audience that you know who to talk to. Fly tying is maybe niche enough that you've got that, but like, let's say you're running a general like marketing course or something, right? All of a sudden your audience is everyone. And so with a bigger audience like that, the ability to hyper target who you're talking to or to get your message in the right person's hands might become more challenging. So I wonder, as you talk about, or as you're helping your mentees sort of start to develop their plan and decide what they're going to go after and the type of content they're going to teach, how do you talk to them about marketing, and how do you talk to them about, what's actually useful versus what isn't? Is it good to be on Twitter? Is it, not useful, et cetera?
Yeah. 2 points. So, one you kind of hit on, it's like, are people searching for this? Are they looking for a solution to this, particular problem? So you need to ensure that you have two marketing strategies here, one for warm leads and one for cold leads, right? And so the warm lead strategy is your basic stuff in terms of just SEO, search engine optimization, GEO, generative engine optimization. So you're coming up on ChatGPT and Gemini and those sorts of things. And making yourself just easily found. So as an example, I was targeting nurse practitioners. I was targeting medical professionals. People would go onto Google or ask ChatGPT or whatever, I am a burnt out doctor. What can I do to get out of burnout? And some of the results would come back and it would say you can start your own practice, and the elite nurse practitioner would show up, right? Because I have articles about burnout. You know what I mean? I knew what these people were searching for, right? Because I've been there. I was, like I walked the walk, right? And so you want to make sure that you maximize your warm lead collection, your conversion. So that is just simple content creation, lots of content on your website, lots of content on your social media channels, YouTube, etc. The more you have out there on your website, the more topics you talk about, the more questions that you answer, the higher the chances that people are just going to find you through just searching. If they're searching for something that's specific to what you're teaching, they are a warm lead. They are looking for something to help them, right? So you want to make sure you extract those warm leads and convert them as much as you possibly can. One quick tip is that every single piece of content that you create, one great way to get found on like ChatGPT or Gemini is to have a frequently asked question section of the article or the video and a key takeaways. So you literally just at the end of the article just put key takeaways, heading 10 key takeaways from the article, fact, 5 to 10 questions or whatever. That way, the more questions that you have that you're answering on your content, the more likely ChatGPT will find someone who's asking a similar question and then find your content to answer them with, right? So that's warm leads. And then cold lead strategy is probably where you're going to be getting the majority of your sales, probably. A lot of people might not be really looking for a specific topic or be looking for a specific solution to their problem because they might not be aware that it's actually a problem that's solvable. Like a lot of these people don't even realize it. You know, a lot of people that I was teaching didn't even realize they could start their own practice. They're like, oh, what? I can do that? You know? So some people might not even realize it's a solvable problem. And so you need to send out signals out there to your target demographic. You know, like you mentioned before, is that you have to hyper target. That's what separates a very, very successful continuing education course business from one that's not really very successful. Is that if you identify your target demographic and you identify your target market very specifically, you know who you're selling to. It is extremely easy to target those people online through social media channels, essentially. You can target them specifically on, you know, Facebook, Meta. I don't care what anyone says. Meta is still the largest social media platform, and it is still one of the most effective advertising platforms there is. It just is. I make a shit ton of money on Meta still. And so Meta, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. You can hyper target people. And if you know who your target market is, you can speak directly to them and you can send them out signals to gauge interest. And it's really not that complicated. Sure, you can push your course product to them. That's not the most effective way to do this. Most effective way to do it is to push your content at them and then let them make the decision if they're interested or not. So instead of spending lots and lots of money on advertising your course or your product, and I see this mistake all the time, people will dump thousands, tens of thousands of dollars marketing their product, their course, and they spend no money at all advertising, marketing, promoting their content, and just trying to get engagement and building an audience. So you need to flip around what you think, and that's what you need to be doing. You need to be building an audience, promoting your content, getting engagement up, getting people to subscribe to your email list, and then that's when you can sell them. So instead of spending $10,000 promoting your course, spend $8,000 promoting content, and then spend $2,000 promoting your course, retargeting the people who clicked on your content, right? Retarget them, and you'll be much more efficient with your marketing dollars. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Well, and I think for a lot of people too, like if you're starting off with no budget, I mean, content creation is ostensibly free. I mean, you know, you can do a little bit of thought, decide what you want to do. Maybe you got to buy a couple props or whatever. But, generally speaking, I mean, it's between you and your iPhone or whatever. And so it's not that, or it's not, at least the barrier to entry is much lower than it might have been in the past, where you needed a production team or something to come do it. And so I think you're right that focusing your energy on the content creation is important. And I think that you've kind of alluded to this too, but it's like a big chunk of this is giving a lot away, right? You're actually kind of giving away some of what you're going to be teaching, right? I mean, I guess people need to be able to empathize with whatever your content is and understand that, the learnings they'll get from your materials are, going to be in line with this piece of content. And so that's kind of how people can make the correlation that I think this course will be worth it because, this content's worth it. So why wouldn't the course be? And so I think it's important, but I think there's a lot of people who will try to gatekeep and, maybe not be as forthcoming with their information. So what's your thought on that? Like, I mean, maybe you need to hang on to the secret sauce. I don't know, but maybe we can talk a little bit about just sort of the strategy of your content creation. which is, how forthcoming should you be? Where should you give? Where should you hold back? And that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of people gatekeep it. A lot of people are very, very scared or hesitant about creating content because they feel like they're going to be giving away what they're teaching in their paid course, right? If you looked at the CE businesses, the continuing education course businesses that I've created, and if you went through all of the content I ever created, podcasts, videos, articles, etc., if you wanted to spend the time and go through all of those things, you probably would end up extracting the same information that I would teach in a 4-hour course, right? How long would it take you to do that, though? Very, very long time, if at all, because it's completely unorganized, right? With a course, it's organized. There's a step-by-step procedure within it. When you create content, you can take one little procedure out of here, one step out of there, one little piece of content from this course here, and you can create literally years worth of content from one course if you just spread it out, make it unorganized. You know what I mean? So I think that don't be scared of providing a lot of free value out there. Just don't organize it, basically, is the whole point. Don't have an article series where it goes step by step through whatever it is that you're teaching. Don't do that. Just pull out little pieces here and there, and you can just publish. You can publish content that's completely random in nature. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be congruent. It doesn't have to make sense from previous article or the previous video. Just create random content with the information that you know. If it's random enough and unorganized enough, no one will ever get the same kind of value out of it as they would with a course. So don't worry too much about that. A lot of people worry about that. It's completely unnecessary.
Well, and I would say it's not so different than, almost anything else. I mean, big part of the things that we pay for, just as consumers in the world, is we're paying for convenience, right? And so part of the convenience here is somebody has already put together the course. Like, why should I scour Instagram for hours, or why should I, Google every potential topic and read every article? I'm paying for the course. In part for the knowledge, but also because it's already here. Like, here's this package. I can just buy it and be done.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. It's you hit the nail on the head. Convenience. It's the convenience factor of it. Most people are willing to spend a couple $100 to be told exactly what to do from an expert who has experience with it versus just finding a bunch of random pieces online and putting it together yourself, right?
Yeah.
Especially within the professional space, especially when it comes to continuing education, some kind of highly skilled, high, knowledge-based kind of course that requires skill and experience, education, that sort of a thing. So yeah, no, that's exactly
well, and so much of it too. It's convenience, but you make a good point, especially in continuing education stuff. Like, my wife is a teacher and she has to take a certain number of CE credits every couple of years or whatever. And, but she's also a full-time teacher, or in the case of a lot of your audience, maybe they're full-time nurse practitioners or men's clinic runners, or, whatever it is. And like, these guys, they don't have 40 hours a week to commit to learning. They've got to pick up a few things as they go and that kind of thing, or I'll commit to taking this 4-hour course over the weekend, but like, I'm back to work on Monday. Like, I can't just do this every day, So, convenience is, part of it, but it's also, almost a requirement. These people are working hard and they're, in their careers and all that kind of stuff. And, CE might be a state requirement, or it might be, a federal requirement, or whatever it is, depending on the course and the position. But, you're doing something almost because you have to, or because you want to stay relevant, or whatever it is. And, you don't have a lot of time to commit to this. So, it's one thing to sit and flip through Instagram, and maybe, my wife gets all the teacher influencers, right? So there's no shortage of teachers with different ideas, but, but if she actually has to take a course, like, she'd much rather sit down and hammer through something in an hour or two than have to drag that out, for multiple hours over the week or whatever.
Yeah, 100%, exactly right. That's the cheat code when it comes to continuing education course business, everyone. Like, it is required for professionals, for various professions. Dozens, if not hundreds of professionals have to have continuing education course credits hours to maintain their license, to be able to work. So you have immediate built-in demand with a business like this. It's built in. And oftentimes, the person's not even really paying for it. Their employer's paying for it, or the school district's paying for it, or the hospital system's paying for it. They're not even paying for it, right? And so, yeah, so it's built in demand. But yeah, you're not going to be able, you're not going to get that from just searching online and going on a chat GPT and asking it some questions or whatever. So yeah, so just be aware of that. But in terms of content creation goes though, don't worry about it. You have to deliver free, valuable information if you want a business model like this to work, you have to. It's not optional. Like you have to if you want to build it the right way.
Yeah. Well, and one of the big things I think that's going to be a big factor in the future, like as we're all trying to survive AI and not lose our jobs, I mean, because theoretically ChatGPT could put together some kind of training course for you or something, I mean, you could do that, but we still look out for experts. And I think a big part of that and the way that we survive, as professionals, especially people in sort of the education space or people who are trying to relay information, that you could theoretically get in other ways, is I think having a point of view. And I think, if I'm going to pay for a course or I'm going to hire somebody as a consultant or whatever it is, I want that person to have a point of view. And it's not that the information you're teaching, I mean, maybe the way that you teach, and not singling you out, of course, but I mean, maybe the content in your thing could be taught by any number of people who have been successful in that kind of line of work. But people hire you or buy your version of the course because of you and your personality and the way that you say things or the way that you handle your business. And that's appealing to a certain group of people. And I think if you're not sharing your point of view in your content, so for example, if you're just either not doing it or you're doing some kind of AI generated, really boring content or something, like you're missing the opportunity to share your point of view. And I think the point of view is what's going to help you survive AI and everything else. I always use, it's probably not even that good of an example, but I always use something like Picasso. It's like, hey, okay, I want to have a Picasso in my house. That's my big goal, is I want to buy a Picasso. Well, I don't want the Picasso NFT. I don't want the JPEG that I ran off the computer. I don't want something that looks like a Picasso. I want Picasso's thing. And what makes Picasso interesting is his point of view. It's his take. I mean, the paint is the paint, the canvas is the canvas, all that stuff. But what's interesting is the point, is his point of view or his perspective on the world. And if you are trying to stand out anywhere, there's plenty of artists who are not successful in the world. And a lot of people would look at somebody like Picasso's art and be like, dude, this guy's crazy, like mental illness or something. What's going on? But at the same time, people love it and they want it, but they want it because it's him, not because of, some other factor. They're not just buying cool paint or something. So, so I think as it pertains to content strategy and things like that too, I think it's really important to make sure that you're sharing your actual point of view on things, because I think that can really help drive people into a course, or especially if you want them to follow you as and I hate the term, but like as an influencer or something in a genre. I mean, you have to, in order to be influential, you have to have a point of view. I guess is the moral of the story.
100%. I get asked this question all the time. Well, AI is going to take over this stuff. Why should I even bother? You hit the nail on the head. It's because of your point of view. It's because of your experience. It's because of the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into your life, into your career, into your knowledge base. I mean, you've worked hard. You've worked your ass off trying to get to the place that you're at. And ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, they haven't, right? And so you can put your point of view into it. You can put your personal experience, the knowledge, the blood, sweat, the tears, the failures, the successes, everything that makes you a human, you can put into your course or your content. AI can't do that. AI is not going to resonate with people. It's just not. I mean, everyone, when you're reading AI slop or not. You just do. When you're watching an AI derived video versus someone who's actually sitting there talking. You can just tell, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you put some true authenticity into it, your point of view, your blood, sweat, and tears, you don't really have to worry too much about it, because at the end of the day, people are always going to pay a premium and more money for something that's human derived, human made, recorded by a human. People still want that human interaction. And I have a feeling as the years go by, people are going to crave more and more of that, because I don't know about you, but I know when I go through my feed, I'm like, how much of this garbage is just AI at this point? Like, I don't even want, like, I can just tell it is. It's just like, how much of the stuff online now is just complete AI garbage? It drives me kind of crazy. And I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it's funny because at this point I'm like ready to abandon most of the social platforms anyway. Because like, I
Yeah.
mean, even just like, I used to be able to, flip through a couple platforms and at least get some semblance of the news. Maybe it'd be a little tilted or whatever, but you could kind of get a handle on world events or whatever. But I've really noticed, like with all this stuff going on with Iran right now, that it's like I can't make heads or tails out of what's actually being said. You got every, bot farm and regime and government and whatever, and they all have opinions and takes. And, like for me, it's become so noisy that it's barely even worth tuning in.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so it's become a real problem. And actually, it's funny because on my Instagram profile, my wife always makes fun of it because it's so boring, but like there's about 5 verticals. I've got Porsches, I've got cooking, I've got occasional baby animals. I've got, but I mean, like, but my thread or my algorithm consists of like 5 or 6 things, and so it's kind of funny because I'm really siloed in that way, but it's the only way that it's made it any kind of, valuable to me at all is that, because if you just kind of are looking at the network writ large, you're getting so much noise. And, I have another little like metaphor that I've been using to sort of describe what I think the future looks like. And just to reinforce your point, which is I sort of imagine this like sort of post-apocalyptic dystopian like Tokyo or something where every piece of glass is a screen and everything is moving and it's all this stuff, and then like across the way, under the street light, you see just a little ramen stand, with some little old dude just cooking, slinging up ramen. And I just go, I'm going to go to the ramen guy. I'm not going to choose any of this other stuff, right? I'm going to look for the thing that's uniquely human. And I think to just back up what you're saying, I think, the world is certainly going to get noisier, and, marketing is one of the first spots that AI is really creeping into. Like, I think it's just because it's so easy to generate content. People are going that way. And, but it's going to become so noisy that the only things that will stand out will be the things that are truly human, or, again, back to this idea about a point of view. And so I think people are going to be craving more and more for human stuff. And I would rather have a course from somebody like you who talks about the ups, the downs, the problems, the things that you've been through. And I mean, hell, you could even maybe be a little wrong on something, but it worked for you, but maybe it's wrong by the way the textbook reads or whatever. But I would rather have your take than just, read, something out of ChatGPT or whatever that's sort of built to please me. And so I think it's really important, that human component. And so to your point, as people are making these courses or maybe talking themselves out of it, I think they have to understand just how important a role the humans will be in the future AI world.
100% agree. Like, don't worry about it. I think that if you're authentic, you're providing something valuable, there's some entertainment involved with it too, make it engaging. I don't think there's anything to worry about. I really don't.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about mechanics of doing coursework. Certainly people come to you with a notion of an idea, or they'll come with a little crumb of hey, this is what I think I want to do a course on. But what are the non-negotiable ingredients, or the things that you really have to include in a course like this to make it prove valuable? And we've probably talked about a few of these things, but I wonder if we could talk about it in sort of a process-driven kind of way.
I mean, it really depends on what kind of course you're going to create, right? What you're going to teach, that sort of a thing. But I think just a general principle is you got to look at this as not just building a course. You got to look at this as building a course business. Way too many people focus on the course itself, and the course itself is important. It's your product, right? I mean, it needs to be solid, but it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't need to be amazing. At the end of the day, you're going to be your messaging and your content and stuff that pushes people to that course. As long as you're solving the problem, it doesn't have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It just doesn't. Way too many people focus way too much on the course itself, on building the course, making it perfect. They spend months. I had one client who spent almost a year on their course and has yet to release it. I'm just like, dude, this course is fine. Just get it launched, get it out there. Like, you can figure out the problems later. But the issue though is that people focus on the course and not the course business. You need to flip that around. You need to focus on the course business. Your course is the product. Yes, put the time it needs to be put into it to develop something stellar. It doesn't have to be longer than a month or two to do that. It really doesn't if you got 10 hours a week to work on it. These things happen pretty quickly as you're working on it. Focus on the continuing education course business. The way I like to kind of frame it is that the foundation of the CE business, the continuing education course business, the foundation of it is your value proposition, your mission, and just the general idea of the business itself. That's the concrete foundation of the house that you're building. Without it being solid, it doesn't matter how much infrastructure you build on top of it, what you fill the house up with, it's going to crumble. And not enough people spend enough time developing their value proposition, their mission statement, and their idea. You need to spend more time on that than anything else. Anything else. If it takes you a month to come up with that and to do enough market research, whatever, that's fine, because your entire course's business is built off of this. So you need to spend some time on that. And then the walls of the house that you're building lay on the foundation, the value proposition, and the mission statement. And that's just the infrastructure of the business itself. That's just building any kind of digital business, right? Having a website, having payment processors, having a course hosting platform, having marketing channels built, email platforms, etc., right? That's just the basic infrastructure of it. And then you need to fill it up, right? Then you build a roof on it, which would be mostly just like, the shell of the business, the website, and the content strategy, your strategy. And then within it, though, is the furniture and the assets of the actual house itself. And that's going to be most of your content. That's the way you kind of got to look at it. But you have to focus on that foundation. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, well, and I think that's really good. There's actually one of the things I wrote really early on in our conversation today was no plan. That you didn't go into this whole thing of building these continuing education courses with like a plan to be like the course guy, for example. And so the way that translated to me is exactly what you're just talking about, which is people get so caught up in trying to be perfect that they let it be the enemy of good, right? And I imagine there's kind of a boundary here, which is, there's decent film production. And to be totally honest, you can do probably good enough on your cell phone these days, but if you have anything reasonably modern. But I think being able to go out and do the production is maybe less important than, some people might think it is. And, maybe in professional courses, and this is, I guess, maybe a question for you, which is in professional courses, there's probably some level where if you don't look professional enough, you don't come off credible. And so, and maybe you can accomplish this, with an iPhone and a shirt with a collar. Maybe that's enough to get, over that hurdle. But I wonder if you just talk about, if they're like in terms of, we don't need to make it be perfect. But if the course is good enough, like kind of what does good enough look like, I guess, just to help people gauge where the bar might be.
Good enough is, are you delivering on the promise within your messaging, right? I mean, if you're talking about a problem and you're hammering on this problem within the content that you're producing on the sales page of the course, if your business's value proposition and mission statement revolve around this problem, and it should, then does your course deliver a solution to that problem? Or are you just BSing everyone? If you cannot deliver on the promise, if you cannot deliver on your mission, then it is not good enough, obviously, right? So number one is, are you solving the problem that you're proposing? Are you solving it? Are you delivering on your promise? A lot of people create courses and don't do that. And it leaves the student walks away from the course scratching their head like, I'm more confused now. I don't know what to do. And then they ask for a refund, or they're starting to blow up your email, your inbox with questions and stuff. That happens, then you did not deliver on your promise. So you need to make sure that you do that. Make sure you solve the problem that you're talking about. And then obviously, if it's good enough, it needs to look okay. It does not need to be $1 million production here. Like, you can use your phone. You can use the camera on your phone if you want. You don't even have to even record a video if you don't want to. You can just record audio and then sync the audio to PowerPoint slides. That's what all my courses are. None of my courses actually have me on the course. Not one of them. Not 50 plus courses. It's all just me talking through a mic. I record on Audacity, which is free recording software. I just record on Audacity, and then I just take that audio, give the slide deck to someone in Mexico or India or whatever, and pay them $10 an hour to edit the audio, sync it to the PowerPoint slides, and give me video. It costs a couple $100 to get the whole thing edited. It's good enough, right? Mm-hmm. I'm solving the problem. That's what people care about. And I host it on a course hosting platform. whatever course hosting platform you want, as long as the user interface is not confusing, you know what I mean? That's good enough.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think that's really good. In fact, the note that you just mentioned about using just sort of voice over PowerPoint, I think that this is one of the spots where a lot of people probably flounder or start to walk away from doing their course or talk themselves out of it, which is they don't want to be on camera. And so, a lot of people hate the sound of their own voice, so that's a hurdle for people. But I mean, man, getting on camera is a scary one for a lot of folks. And so the fact that you don't necessarily have to do that, and I think you're right. And I think honestly, it's a business learning, it's a, life learning, it's everything. This notion of delivering on the promise is huge. I mean, that really is the whole thing. As long as you get out of this what I say you'll get out of it, then, you've pretty well nailed it. And, for me, I tend to be one of those guys that tries to do a little more professional quality video and stuff like that. And I know that for me personally, the course that I've been working on for, a number of years. Now, granted, I will say I don't work on it with any regularity. It just pops into my head every now and then. So I'm not in line with some of your clients who are actively trying to get something done. But I've been working on this course, and now I've got scripts. I've got everything written. I'm at the point where now it's like, okay, we should do video. But I'm like, well, I need to get a friend over here that can help me with the lighting, and I've got to get a studio that looks nice, and I've got to, and those are all the reasons for me to not move forward, right? Those are the things keeping me from getting to the finish line. And I think a lot of times, maybe that's fear or trepidation or whatever, but we make excuses a lot to try and, actually not do the thing that we're trying to do. And so I wonder if, if that's something you've seen too, but I like the freedom you're giving us here to not have to necessarily do that.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people work, I guess, focus on a lot of different random things. Well, let me ask you, what do you think your biggest holdup is? You said you've been working on this course for 1 year. Like,
yeah, and probably more than that, to be honest.
Okay, so what would you identify as the biggest holdup?
I would say the biggest thing for me is a production thing. And, like I say, I mean, for me, my goal was to do it on film. And so the idea is I need to schedule a day or two or a week or whatever to shoot all the content. And then, then there's the editing hurdles and all this other stuff that chase it, So for me, I've turned it into this big production job, and it's nothing crazy. I mean, honestly, it's just a course on podcasting and helping people get from nothing to something. Right. I mean, so the goal isn't, to make you a world-class broadcaster. Instead, the goal is how can we get you into podcasting, and get more people into this space. And so, it took some years to develop some theories and some ideas and, and I've got some things, but it's like, it's not rocket science either. Right. And so it's like, so the biggest hurdle is not, I mean, the content's been written probably for a couple of years by now. But I haven't actually sat down to tape it because it's like, well, okay, I got to figure out time in my day to do that. I have to set up the cameras. I have to rig up the lights. I have to do all this stuff, because I don't really have a team to help me do that. And so it's just like, I don't know, there's enough of a boundary there to keep me from moving forward. And, and I suspect I'm not alone in that. Like there's probably plenty of people who sort of procrastinate by virtue of making things too hard. And so,
yeah, no, you're not alone by any stretch of the imagination. No, I would say this is probably a huge factor. Probably a huge factor that I see amongst a lot of really just content creators online in general, or even just entrepreneurs in general. I even see the same thing when I would consult people starting a medical practice, as an example. You get analysis paralysis, overload paralysis over, one simple thing that really, if you just sat down and knocked it out, it would be done. And then that would be past you and you can move on with life. Right. So, for that production aspect of it, though, I do see that. People are hesitant to being in front of a camera. They might be camera shy. They don't want to, look stupid in front of a camera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, dude, you do not have to be on camera. Anyone creating a course business, a course, you don't have to be on camera. You can literally just record audio and then have a slide deck on the screen. That's literally all you have to do. I have always found personally that when there is a face on the screen talking, and then there's like a slide deck, superimposed with that, I've always found that the talking head there is actually distracting and takes away from the actual learning itself. So you will actually have a higher completion rate and a higher satisfaction rate in general, depending on what kind of course you're creating, but this is just a general statement. If it's just your audio and then you have a slide deck on the screen, maybe a video demonstration or something. If it's a procedure, you need to show people a screen share if you're guiding people on how to, upload a podcast episode or edit or whatever. So yeah, you do not have to have a tremendous amount of production here. I built $1 million continuing education course business with a $80 mic that I bought at Best Buy, like a JBL. I don't even remember what it was. It was one of those, kind of crappier podcast mics that you would see at like Best Buy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? $80 mic, PowerPoint, and Audacity, which is free. That's it. That was literally it.
Yeah. No, and I think it's really a great point because, even just in having this conversation with you, like I'm rethinking my strategy because I'm going, okay, well, God, I mean, and I'm really bad on the content front. So I don't spend a lot of time espousing my expertise or anything. So I'm not putting myself out there in that way. So the reality is this course doesn't hinge on me or my popularity, right? The course itself would kind of hinge on the popularity of the topic or finding people who are actually interested in that topic. And, so, I mean, to be totally honest, like a slideshow and, a little bit of information and maybe a couple little video demos of how to hook stuff up or whatever might be it. Like that's kind of enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. And instead I've built this whole thing, it's called the Podcast Masterclass and it's sort of branded after this show and stuff like that. And so it's got this whole thing. So my thought was, well, God, it's got to have this big media package and all this stuff. And like I say, it's spun me out to the point of not doing it because I start going, oh, okay, well, the video and then the editing and then the, sequencing everything and then gathering all the assets and blah, 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 blah. When I've already got scripts, I'm already talking from a slide deck, basically, I've already got the deck. And so theoretically, I mean, and maybe this is a point I was going to make earlier is that nothing's permanent either, so like if your version 1 isn't your dream version of your presentation, that's okay. Get out there, make some sales, and then go reshoot or go, whatever. If you want to improve it and you want to make it better for whatever reason, whether it's practical or just for your own edification, like, that's the beauty of everything being digital these days is that you can kind of have infinite do-overs. If I want to roll out V1 of my course with slide decks and then V2 in 6 months with video production, I mean, I don't know if one or the other would even move the needle if we're doing sort of what you described as number 1 here, which is delivering on the promise.
It probably would make no difference in your sales whatsoever if you did that. If you recorded it and then got it launched and then later on did a higher production video value, a higher production video, whatever, it would probably not affect your sales whatsoever. At the end of the day, this is a business and your goal is to generate sales. That's what your goal is. So that should be the priority of whatever it is that you're doing is this going to generate income? And would these little tiny changes that I'm trying to make, recording a video or having a professional editor and spending thousands of dollars on it or whatever, having a super high definition, $1,200 camera recording it versus your iPhone, do those little things, are they going to increase the actual income, the revenue? They're not. They're just not. If you're solving a problem, no one gives a shit what it looks like.
It's an interesting point. And if you think about it, just even in practice, like think about the videos that have gone the most viral or the content that gets, spread around the internet, the furthest and widest. Like it's not usually the high level production that somebody put together. It's almost always, some little candid home video of a kid making a joke or, like whatever it is, it's like, but it's almost always low fidelity, no thought put into the production. The lighting's not perfect. I mean, it's very rarely the really high production pieces are the ones that, go viral or go, do all the metrics that people want. So I think, that's a good way to at least look at it in terms of like looking for physical evidence that what it looks like matters less than the quality of the content, or at least I guess the content's ability to resonate with people. Because I mean, clear as day that like video quality really isn't the factor.
I mean, as long as it doesn't look like shit. Right. I mean, as long as you're not recording on grandpa's old camcorder, right? I mean, as long as it looks decent, I wouldn't record on just a little tiny, crappy camera that's on your laptop. I wouldn't do that. At least have some decent quality stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it probably ties a little bit to just like sort of credibility in general, right? I know you spend a lot of time talking about trust and authority, and we've discussed a number of facets of that today. But I mean, like, some of it is, you don't want to look like this was shot out of the back room of some sleazy apartment or something. Like, I mean, especially if you're going to try and sell this into a professional environment, you want doctors to buy this video that looks like, you let your 3-year-old run the camera, it's like, I mean, there's a little bit of like boundary setting there, which is just,
Yeah.
okay, well, I need it to look of a certain level of quality so that I come off credible.
Right. Exactly. It needs to be good enough, right? Like good enough. It doesn't need to look like, don't want it to look like crap. You don't want it to also look like something that's a professional, cost you tens of thousands of dollars to produce. It's not necessary. The founder of Atari and Chuck E. Cheese, surprisingly, the guy who founded Atari also started Chuck E. Cheese of all things.
Yeah, that's a range.
I know, right? Atari and then Chuck E. Cheese. Like, anyways, that guy, I forgot what his name was, but he has a quote. I'm probably going to butcher this, but this is basically what the quote is. It's just like, get your product out on the market, even if you think it's too early to get it out on the market. Get it out there, even if it's going to break. Get it out there and start generating sales and fix the problems later on, because your goal is to get it out there. Just get it out there as quick as you possibly can. As long as it's somewhat functional, as long as it still solves the problem, as long as it still delivers on that promise, just get it out there. I mean, I mentored a guy who started a continuing education course business, and he spent 4 months. That's it, 4 months. Super proud of this person. He spent 4 months building the continuing education course business out, building the actual courses itself out. He spent 4 months building this out, and then spent about 3 to 4 months building an audience after everything was completed. And was just lots of content, all this kind of stuff. And within that 6 to 8 month range, he had generated almost $300,000 or $400,000 in sales, with the business being less than a year old. By the end of that year, he hit $1 million in sales in 1 year, because he just got it out there. Fix the problems later on. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think, for any of the entrepreneurs listening to this or whatever, I mean, I think, anyone, if you spent time around like startup culture or whatever, one of the things they really push is this notion of an MVP. And the idea is it's your minimum viable product, right? So it's your V1. This is the first thing you're going to the market with. And it often has very little resemblance to whatever the final product is, or the big thing that became famous or whatever. There's all these examples, I mean, even like Facebook, it was like, I think it was like a dating site or something like that initially on college campuses. And then it evolved into being the world's biggest social media platform. But from day one, you wouldn't have known that it was going to be what it is today. Right. And so to the point that you're making about this gentleman, I mean, he, rolled something out. It's probably been refined. He's probably gotten questions over time from people and fixed those questions or addressed those questions, or, whatever. He's taken feedback, but he didn't let that lack of perfection keep him from just rolling it out. And I think that that's really an important point, is because I think, I mean, there's the old phrase, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I think that that's sort of the thing that holds up so many people, is they're just like, well, it's not good enough, or they really want it to be perfect. And, but I think that really is, at least I know in my own life, I've used that as a form of procrastination more than once, which is, I'm not going to launch this business until I get the website just right. Or what if the product isn't good enough, or whatever. And so we just relaunched our company as a new business on the first of the year. And that's been one of the things we've been rolling hard on, which is we're just refining this product all the time. We rolled it out with stuff that was, ready, good enough. It would do a passable job of what we said it would do. But it's been something we've been iterating on, even without customers asking, just like we're making it bigger and stronger and more robust all the time. And, it's this consultative offer. And so we've been making it better all the time. But I think you could translate that into any business, any startup business, especially, if you're going to roll out a new widget, whatever, widget A is probably not going to be as good as version 300. But if you just get it out there, you can actually start to make some headway, maybe faster than you think, and then use real live market feedback to actually evolve your product instead of just guessing and ruminating on it in your own head.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I mean, completely agree with that. It's just get it out, start the business. Every business I've ever started, I had no business plan. I've never written a business plan in my entire life. It's a waste of time. It's a complete waste of time. Instead of spending the time writing the business plan, why don't you just go ahead and get the business started? You know what I mean? Do the shit you need to do to get the business up and going instead of writing out a business plan. Never wrote a business plan out. And every business I ever started, I got up and running within 1 to 2 months. Like it was nothing crazy. What's the objective of any business? It's to make money. So what's the quickest way I possibly can get this product or service on the market, the fastest possible way, and just get it out there? And that's what I would focus on. And I can work out problems as they come. You know what I mean? My men's health clinics, every medical practice I ever started, the amount of problems that happened during the first 3 months of operations, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, it was an absolute train wreck. But I was treating patients, I was seeing patients, I was making money, right? So the goal of the business was there. With the elite nurse practitioner, I had absolutely no clue what I was doing at all. Zero. This is the first time I ever created a course in my entire life. I don't even know if it was even good enough, right? And I listened to that course now and I'm like, man, I was such a newbie. Like I was such just a novice. Like when I listen to that course now, and I listen to a course I record now, I've developed 50 plus courses at this point, pretty good at it. But it was good enough, right? I got it out there. I spent maybe 3 or 4 weeks on it. That's it. And I got it on the market, used a course hosting platform. I used Teachable of all things. And I got it out there. I didn't even know if the payment processor was going to work. I didn't even know if the checkout page was really going to work, whatever. I'd send an email out and come to find out it was going to everyone's spam folder because of some stupid thing that I had with DNS server connection, whatever it was on the background that I had to fix. So like it was a disaster really, and I was just completely winging it the very first year of that business, completely winging it. And I'd figure stuff out as I went on, but I was still hitting the main objective, and that's to make money. But I was making money. I was still delivering a product, still delivering a service, delivering on my promise, providing a solution, and making money. Everything else is noise. You can figure that shit out later. You can work on it as you go.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, I think so many people, just to keep beating this drum on procrastination, I think so many people do keep themselves from finding that success or whatever, because they're either trying to make something perfect that isn't, they're trying to factor in or guess every living thing that might happen and try and plan for those things, or, try and create their content in such a way that it's going to be applicable to everybody, or, like there's all these little things that we do that almost kind of are landmines that we put in front of ourselves, And so I think it's really important to share that message and what you just talked about, which is just, just go do it. Stop wasting your time, And I think that's a really strong place to wrap up. So Justin, let's take a quick minute before we get out of here. Where can people track you down online if they want to learn more about you, if they want to check out your products, your services, anything? Where can folks find you?
Yeah, super easy. I'm still old school. I still like email. So if you want to ask me a question directly, email me, justin@procoursestart.com. I will answer. I don't have a VA. I don't have a virtual assistant. I don't have an AI agent. Okay. Like I will answer it. So email me if you have a question. Like I'm happy to help. You can go to procoursestart.com. That's just procoursestart.com. You can check out, I have content on there. I'm not as consistent as I preach, but, I should be, but I do have a pretty large marketing budget, so I don't really need to be. So if you got a large marketing budget, you don't have to produce as much content, So I have a fairly large marketing budget at this point, but anyways though, but you can check out procoursestart.com, a lot of articles. I got some videos on there too. And we have a mastermind, if you're interested in joining that, where I teach you how to do this step by step. Also have a pre-recorded evergreen course. It's over 15 hours long on how to do this the right way. So you can check that out as well. But yeah, I'm on all the social media pages too, except for LinkedIn. I don't, LinkedIn's been a real thorn in my side, so I've just given up on it. But yeah.
I love it. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to everybody today. Lots of really good information in there. And now I'm inspired to finish my stupid course. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
All right. You're welcome.
Absolutely. And thanks so much to everybody who tunes in the podcast this week and every week. And we'll see you guys next time.